Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello learners, I am Dr. Rekha Sharma, former professor, UGC Human Resource Development Center, Rashtrasant Tukaroji Maharaj, Nagpur University, Nagpur. In this video, we shall study structure, composition and processing of wheat. The objectives of this video are, after studying this video contents, the learners will be able to explain the structure of wheat, will be able to describe the composition of wheat, and will be able to discuss the processing of wheat. Now, wheat is the world's most important food plant for more than 1/3 of the world's population. Millions of people throughout the world depend on foods made from kernels of wheat plant. The three principal types of wheat used in food production are Triticum vulgare or Estivium, Triticum durum and Triticum compactum. Triticum vulgare provides the bulk of the wheat used to produce flour for bread making and for cakes and biscuits. Triticum durum is mainly ground into semolina, that is purified middlings, instead of flour. Triticum compactum is more suitable for confectionery and biscuits than for other purposes. It is a one-seeded, dry, indehiscent grain. Usually 2 grains develop in each spikelet. Each grain is oval with a convex dorsal surface and a centrally grooved ventral surface. The kernel of wheat is usually 1/8 to 1/4 inch long. The tip of each kernel is covered by a stiff or hairs called brush. Wheat grains are ovoid in shape and rounded on both ends. Along one side of the grain there is a crease. The gemma and pallia become free from the grain at threshing and form chaff. The bracts adhering to the grain constitute the hull or husk. Now the structure of wheat in detail. The physical structure of wheat consists of bran 14.5 to 15%, endosperm 83% and germ 2.5%. Now bran or pericarp. Bran is made up of 6 layers. Now it is given here. It is made up of 6 layers. The outer layer, epidermis, of the wheat consists of thin-walled, long rectangular cells. Next to the epidermis is hypoderm of varying thickness. The innermost layer of the pericarp tears during the ripening of the seed, and in the mature grain they are represented by a layer of cells known as tube cells. Now seed coat. The seed coat or testa is often deeply pigmented, which gives grain with the cellular structure almost obliterated. Next to testa is hyaline layer or nucellar layer, which is colorless and devoid of any obvious cellular structure. The inner of testa of wheat is deeply pigmented, which gives grain its characteristic color. The fourth layer, testa, contains the coloring matter which decides the color of the wheat. It is rich in sterols, accounting to 1% of the epicarp. The outer pericarp constitutes to 3.5% of the pericarp. Antioxidants such as phenolic acids are bound to the cell wall. Repeat. Antioxidants such as phenolic acids are bound to the cell walls in the pericarp. Now aileron layer. The endosperm is surrounded by, now here we can see, the endosperm is surrounded by one or more layer of cells known as aileron, which is the sixth layer which contains protease enzyme. In wheat, aileron is a single layer of thickly coated cubical cells and constitutes 7% of grain weight. The cells contain about 20% of each protein, oil and mineral. Insoluble dietary fibers and very few soluble fibers are also present in this aileron layer and 10% of sugar. It is rich in nicotinic acid. It contains tiny grains of phytic acid with some protein. It surrounds only the starchy endosperm. The aileron layer and all the covering external to it comprise the bran. The sharp edges of the bran fragments have a cutting action on gluten strands, reducing the gas retention power of the dough. It is not desirable to have bran contamination in the flour more than what is absolutely unavoidable in good milling practices. Now, endosperm. The endosperm cells consist mainly of starch and protein. This is endosperm. The endosperm cells consist mainly of starch and protein. The size and shape of starch granules in the endosperm cells vary from one cereal to another. Starchy endosperm accounts for about 80 to 85% of the grain. When milled, the endosperm fractures along the cell and separates from the bran layers. Hard wheat will allow easy separation, while the endosperm of soft wheat does not separate as cleanly from the bran layers. Now, embryo. Embryo is, this is germ or embryo. The wheat germ is the embryo that would eventually develop into the wheat plant. The germ consists of many parts and accounts for 3%. It is separated from the endosperm by the scutellum. Now, this is scutellum. This portion is scutellum. Other nutrients such as lipids, plant sterols, vitamin E and other antioxidants are also present in germ. It contains oil which reduces the keeping quality of flour. It is rich in certain vitamins, protein and oil. It is often used in health foods. Now, this is the structure of wheat, the enlarged structure, a very clear picture. Now, the bran is the outermost layer of this wheat grain. It has epidermis, then hypodermis, cross cells, tube cells, followed by seed coat, that is testa, and then nucellar tissues. So, these contents, they form bran of the wheat, and then followed by endosperm. Endosperm has an aileron layer which separates the bran from the endosperm, then cellulose walls of cells, then cells filled with starch granules in protein matrix and endosperm. This is known as endosperm. The whole, this portion you can see is endosperm. Then the lower part of this grain from here, this is known as germ of grain. Now, between this germ and endosperm, you will find a scutellum layer. This is a scutellum layer. And then the sheath of shoot, then rudimentary shoot, rudimentary primary shoot and shoot sheath and root cap. So, this all constitutes a portion of wheat that is known as wheat germ. So, wheat is made up of bran, endosperm and germ. And on the top of the wheat grain there is a hairs of brush. Now, composition of wheat. The chemical composition of wheat kernel varies widely. The values reported for Indian wheat are moisture 8 to 17%, starch 63 to 71%, sugars 2 to 3%, protein 8 to 15%, crude fiber 2 to 2.5%, fat 1.5 to 2% and ash 1.5 to 2%. Now carbohydrates. Amongst carbohydrates of wheat, all of the starch is in the endosperm. The soluble sugars are mostly found in the germ. The carbohydrates of bran are largely cellulose and hemicellulose. Now protein. The proteins of wheat may be divided into two major groups: non-gluten protein, albumins and globulins, and gluten proteins, mainly gliadins, glutenins, and insoluble residual proteins. Gluten proteins are rich in glutamic acid, mainly as glutamine and proline, but have a lower content of basic amino acids and tryptophan. Non-gluten proteins contain higher amounts of lysine, arginine and tryptophan, and low levels of glutamine and proline. The bran and germ proteins have a higher content of essential amino acids and a more balanced amino acid composition than the inner endosperm proteins. The biological value of endosperm proteins is much lower than that of whole wheat proteins. The lipids. The total lipid content varies from about 0.97 to 2.28%. The lipid content of endosperm, that is 1 to 2%, is less than that of bran, which is 5 to 6%, or germ 8 to 15%. Wheat germ oil is rich in vitamin E. The oil is also rich in essential fatty acids. Now minerals. Wheat is a good source of minerals. It contains iron, phosphorus, magnesium, manganese, copper and zinc. The mineral constituents present in Indian wheat are milligrams per 100 grams, calcium 41 milligram, magnesium 138 milligrams, phosphorus 306 milligrams in the form of phytin 238 milligrams and iron 4.9 milligrams per 100 grams. Vitamins. Whole wheat is a good source of thiamine and nicotinic acid but is poor in riboflavin. B vitamins are present in small quantities. The level of B vitamins appears to be directly related to the protein content of wheat. White flour is devoid of a major part of the B vitamins. Now types of wheat. Wheat is classified according to the texture of the endosperm and the protein content. The way the grain breaks down in milling depends on the texture of the endosperm. The property of the flour and its suitability for various uses depend upon the protein content. The endosperm texture may be vitreous or mealy. Wheat types may also be classified as hard or soft and as strong or weak. Vitreous grains tend to be hard and strong and mealy grain to be soft and weak. Hardness is related to the degree of adhesion between starch and protein. Hardness and softness refer to the way in which the endosperm breaks down on milling. In hard wheat, fragmentation of the endosperm tends to occur along the lines of the cell boundaries. The endosperm of soft wheat fractures in a random way. Hard wheat yields coarse, gritty flour and soft wheat gives very fine flour. The strength of wheat relates to its baking quality. Strong wheat produces large loaf volume, good crumb structure and good keeping qualities. Hard wheat is thus employed for the production of flour for making bread. Weak wheat has a low protein content and forms only a small loaf with a coarse crumb structure. The flours of weak wheat are good for biscuits and cakes. Hard and semi-hard white wheat and amber durum are popular for the preparation of chapati. Wheat is classified according to their baking strength as strong, medium and weak. Now wheat products we shall be discussing: whole wheat flour, refined wheat flour or maida, semolina that is rava, wheat germ, wheat bran, glutamic acid, wheat beer, wheat gluten, wheat bran flakes and shredded wheat. Now whole wheat flour or also known as atta. It contains the finely ground bran, germ and endosperm of the whole kernel. Whole wheat products have a distinctive flavor and coarser texture. Because of the higher fat content of the germ, whole wheat flour is more difficult to keep. Wheat flour is fortified with deflated soya flour, maximum up to 10%. Iron fortified wheat flour has been successfully used to prevent iron deficiency anemia. Now refined wheat flour or maida. The bran and germ are separated in making white flour or maida. Bakes more uniformly into loaf of a greater volume. It can be stored in airtight container in a refrigerator. Semolina or rava. It is coarsely ground endosperm and its chemical composition is similar to that of white flour. It is used in the manufacture of macaroni products. Wheat germ constitutes about 2 to 3% of wheat grain. It has high nutritional quality compared to animal proteins. It is used in bakery products and weaning foods. Wheat bran. It increases the stool weight by increasing the water holding capacity, and it prevents constipation and may lower the risk of colon cancer. Now glutamic acid. It is derived from wheat. A familiar compound of glutamic acid is monosodium glutamate, used to bring out flavor of other foods or seasonings. Now wheat beer. A beer that is brewed with a significant proportion of malted wheat. Common for wheat beers to also contain malted barley. Addition of wheat lends to wheat beers a light flavor and pale color. It can be brewed using both ale and larger brewing techniques. The two most common varieties of wheat beer are Belgian wheat beer and German Weizenbier. Now wheat gluten. It is also called seitan, wheat meat, wheat meat, gluten meat or simply gluten. It is made by washing dough made from wheat flour in water until the starch is rinsed away, leaving only the gluten. It is an alternative to soya-based meat substitutes such as tofu. Now wheat bran flakes. A breakfast cereal containing vitamins B1, B3, B5, B6, B12, C, E and iron, riboflavin, folic acid and zinc. 1 3/4 cup serving contains 3 grams of protein, 5 grams of dietary fiber and 90 calories. Now shredded wheat. It is a breakfast cereal made from the whole wheat. It comes into two sizes: bite size 3/4 inches into 1 inch and normal size. Both sizes are available in a frosted variety and has one side coated with sugar. Some manufacturers have produced filled versions of the bite size cereal. The wheat is first cooked in water until its moisture content reaches about 50%. The grain then passes through a set of rollers with grooves on one side, yielding a web of shredded wheat strands. Many webs are stacked together, and this moist stack of strands is crimped at regular intervals to produce individual pieces of cereal with the strands attached at each end. These then go to an oven where they are baked until their moisture content is reduced to 5%. Now let us summarize. Wheat is used principally for human consumption. It is converted into flour for the production of chapatis, bread, and other bakery products. The principal wheat of commerce are the common or braid wheat, Triticum aestivum, macaroni wheat, Triticum durum, and club wheat, Triticum compactum. The physical structure of wheat consists of bran 14.5 to 15%, endosperm 83%, and germ 2.5%. The values reported for Indian wheat are moisture 8.0 to 17%, starch 63 to 71%, sugar 2 to 3%, protein 8 to 15%, crude fiber 2 to 2.5%, fat 1.5 to 2%, and ash 1.5 to 2%. Wheat types may also be classified as hard or soft and as strong or weak. Hard wheats yield coarse, gritty flour, and soft wheats gives a very fine flour. Hard wheats are used for making bread. The flours of weak wheats are good for biscuits and cakes. A small quantity is converted into breakfast foods such as wheat flakes, puffed wheat, and shredded wheat. The proteins of wheat may be divided into two major groups, the non-gluten proteins and gluten proteins. The wheat products include whole wheat flour, refined wheat flour, semolina, wheat germ and bran, glutamic acid, wheat beer, wheat gluten, wheat bran flakes, and shredded wheat. These are the references. With this, we have come to an end of the lecture on structure, composition, and processing of wheat. Thank you.